We're
Okay,
gonna go live.
let's click this button. I think we've gone live. Let me just
Yes, we are.
confirm. We are
We
live.
are.
Awesome. And also, let me just quickly confirm. Yes, we have enabled the new 1080p version. So this should be
Ooh.
interesting. Yes. Ooh, fancy. Yeah, so for those of our viewers who don't know yet, we actually use StreamYard for our streaming. And they released a feature literally yesterday. We got the mail, I think last night, that they now support 1080 streaming. So obviously, as early adopters, we went ahead and clicked enable. So we want to see how this is going.
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't fail. So
Yeah, we will keep an eye on things. So don't worry too much.
we will see how this all goes. Hello and welcome
Okay.
to this. How would you call it? The Friday edition of bean streaming or tech talks or however you wish to call this thing. So today Cobus and I have a look at some tech once more. And today we're actually gonna do some code commit or not what code commit? CDK.
No.
Why is
CDK.
code commit? Why is CDK? I don't know. Yes, we're gonna do some.
This is the problem with Fridays. By Friday, we've touched so many different AWS services, you're like confused which one you're talking about at the moment.
Exactly. Let me just pull on my do not disturb thing here, and then that.
Oh,
and
same. Let me do that as well.
Yes, we don't want to bother people here. Also, welcome and happy Friday to everybody who's joined. I hope you find this interesting. Also, I hope this is your first coffee of the day, or maybe the first. Is it your first coffee, Cobus, or?
This
That's
is
a
my
nice
very
mug.
sad third.
That's
It's
a
my
nice
very
mug.
sad third coffee.
Isn't this Amazon Recognition Day? No, it's not recognition, Alex. We're gonna be doing a recognition at some other point. I think we lack the compute power to train recognition to recognize us. So
Yes.
it's still a bit away. So today we will be doing some CDK. In general, the goal is that we have a look at CDK, some introductory level to CDK, or actually, we're gonna try to build something with CDK. CDK is a very popular topic apparently, and I think why not get that information out to people a bit more. And I also want to show my friend and colleague Cobus here how to use CDK.
So I think expanding on that a little bit, we've had a discussion about what we want to do with this series, and what we're going to do is we'll start off with CDK today. So the reason for this is I'm selfish and I want to learn CDK in a lot more detail because I've played around with it. I've used it for some small projects, but I haven't gone the full, how do I get this all the way to the end where we put it inside our CI/CD pipelines. My background before joining AWS was a lot of work, years worth with Terraform. So I know exactly how to do that. So I'll be doing that on my YouTube stream. If you're interested in that, hit me up in the chat. I'll share a link at some point about that. But the idea here is that I'm going to use these sessions to have Darko teach me all the advanced bits of CDK to start off with. Because then once we get to the point where we can have all of our deployments happening as you should with infrastructure as code inside your CI/CD pipeline, then we're going to start tackling different topics and saying, okay, cool, now let's go look at some specific service. And then during each of those, we'll say, okay, cool, now this is how the service works. Now let me show you how to bring that back into your pipeline and actually do it properly. Because part of this is it's a learning exercise. And what we'll do is we'll do this live here on the session and show you where we run into some rough edges and things that we're not sure or have to also go Google. So you can see that we don't have this perfect, everything just works the first time experience ever. It's just we hide that behind our editing.
Exactly. Exactly. So basically, we're going to try to decide what to build, and we're going to go and build. And like any good thing out there, we're going to start small. So start very basic and build it out from there. And I think the plan is that we go out on a few episodes on this as well. So we cannot fit everything in a single episode. It would take so much long. So we're gonna kind of split this up as we go. But also, this is not just a place for us to code. This is also a place for you to ask us questions if you have. So feel free to use the chat function and all that stuff. We're happy to answer those things. And if you want us to banter about technology in general, I'm all for that. It's a Friday morning, so I have nothing else to do. Well, let's say
Lucky you.
Lucky you. Well, I don't have kids yet, so I guess it's a bit different. Yeah. But so let me just I wanna play some background music for my own ears. I apologize that we cannot play some music for you.
We are
into
working on it,
stream.
Iva.
We're working on it. We're
We're
trying
trying
to figure out how to get it properly through StreamYard, because StreamYard doesn't have that native functionality. Like you can do it through OBS. If you ever followed my streams, I play music in the background, quiet little music, just so you can avoid the silence, the awkward silence. But I have my friend Cobus here to help me avoid
to.
the awkward silences. So
Oh, you shouldn't bargain on that. I will definitely create them by going like, why did you do that?
why did you do that? Are you nuts? No.
You
Okay,
sure you want to do that?
first question of the day, or first thing of the day. Could you explain what CDK
Yes.
is and a bit of a background on it? Absolutely. So CDK, or Cloud Development Kit. I always have to say the full name before the acronym. So Cloud Development Kit, or CDK, is is a framework that allows you to use generic programming languages to write your infrastructure as code, right? Because we all know that we should write infrastructure as code. There is no doubt about it. If you're not writing infrastructure as code, you're doing it wrong. So somebody, I think, I think it's Ben from the CDK team. He said that infrastructure is code, right? So in this modern world, infrastructure actually is code. So you need to use the best tool you can have to build that infrastructure. So clicking things on the command on the web interface is fine for playing around, but doing anything at scale, repeatable, testable, is testable a word?
Yes.
Yeah. Doing anything at cloud scale requires you to be more smart about it. So using things such as infrastructure as code frameworks out there is very important. Now, CDK takes it one step further, because it allows you to actually use your existing knowledge, your, how you like to call it, institutional knowledge, in some existing programming languages such as Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, C Sharp, F Sharp, and coming soon, also Golang. So you can take those languages and basically use them to build your infrastructure as code. So define all the things you want through code. Now, the traditional way to do it on AWS was through CloudFormation, and CDK actually uses CloudFormation in the backend. So CDK is fully reliant on CloudFormation. It just gives you a nice abstraction layer in front of CloudFormation to do it much easier, right? So, so there's a question: how does CDK compare to CloudFormation? So, let me actually, I'll make an example. So, some people call this cheating, but let me find something. I think I have it somewhere. I think it's in, one second, let me find my repos. CFN, autoscaling web app, is this one? No.
Yeah, I think while you load that up, also
Yeah.
just to cover quickly, a lot of people normally, when you say infrastructure as code, what we mean specifically by the last bit, the as code part, is that your infrastructure is defined in some kind of text file, and then you treat that text file the same way you treat your code text file. So you've got some kind of linting process to make sure that they are no syntax mistakes. You commit them to some kind of centralized repo that the team uses. There's a, let's say, review process where with pull requests or someone else does that. And then also once it's merged, it actually rolls out automatically with your pipeline, once again, as your code does. So the as your code portion is also super, super important there to understand. And that's hopefully what will be get you enabled with the show in the next few episodes.
So here's a great comparison between the two. To create a VPC, a properly full-fledged VPC in CloudFormation, you do this. You do all this. And yeah, it takes that much lines of code to create something like a simple VPC, right? And if I were to do this in CDK, let me actually show this to you. I think I have a CDK repository here somewhere. Samples somewhere. No. CDK. Oh, I don't have it here. Oh, interesting. Oh, no, I know where. I know where is it? CDK. Yes. CDK ASG. There's it. Live.
Yeah, apologies for the viewers if you see me looking away the whole time. I'm literally just keeping an eye on the different streams, given that we are testing out not testing, we're using a brand new feature with StreamYard. So I just want to ensure that we are live.
Yeah. So CDK, you require this one. You just require a single line. So when you want to compare those two, how much effort you need to introduce in one or the other, it may be simpler to do it in CDK. Now, again, if you have experience with any other programming languages, like this is TypeScript, it may be much easier for you to build things in TypeScript than just do standard YAML on CloudFormation. Now, there's pros and cons to both. When it comes to CDK, a lot of things are kind of there's a lot of sensible defaults, but a lot of things are abstracted for you. If you want to get to the nitty gritty and how to create exact certain things, like especially when it comes to role creation, you can use CloudFormation with much more, let's say, CloudFormation may have more benefit there for you because it actually, you have to define those things quite separately. So there are no grand defaults here like on CDK. My advice to you is, if you're starting off with infrastructure as code, you've never done any infrastructure as code at all, but you have some programming knowledge, try CDK. It will make your life easier, right? So, and my example is that what I'm trying to build now, I'm trying to build a CI/CD pipeline, and I did it with CloudFormation. Now, it took me like 6 hours to do it with CloudFormation, with all the troubleshooting and the things not working and reading documentation. I really hope it's going to take me less to do it with CDK, and I kind of have an inkling that it will, because a lot of the things, like for example, a lot of things I troubleshooted on CloudFormation was VPC creation, because sometimes those things can do. And also, I mentioned CDK abstracts CloudFormation. So CDK actually, once you run CDK deploy, it will actually, let me just zoom in a bit. It will actually trigger CloudFormation. So it generates a CloudFormation template for you, and it will do all of these things, right? So if I do that, yes, right, that, it's actually gonna go and make a CloudFormation change set and provision all of those things. Okay, another question. How does CDK compare to something like Terraform? I suppose this is actual infra as code opposed to some markup as code. Well, so my understanding of Terraform, I don't have a lot of experience with Terraform, but Terraform does support a lot of programming type things, logic, reading off disks, etc., etc. So this takes it one step further. Basically, and I can show you in the exact same example. So if I open up this, so if you have ever had to create anything with user data, or if you use CloudFormation and had to load user data is a script that you pass to an EC2 instance to start from the beginning. It was very complex because you had to bake that into the template or the markup language. But here you can just use the native built-in features of the language, such as file system modules, and just I'll give an example here. Where is it? Okay, just read the file off disk into a variable. So you can do much more when it comes to doing programming logic. And also, Alex mentioned here, CDK for Terraform exists, so you can do CDK for Terraform as well. I think it's released in preview, and CDK for Terraform is actually made by HashiCorp. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you can actually use CDK code, albeit different CDK code that looks a bit different because Terraform is different, to generate Terraform. So I think it's a very, my hope is that CDK becomes the cloud development kit, right? So you can develop many different things. And in essence, now with Terraform support, you can launch different cloud resources from different cloud vendors as well through CDK. So I think that's very useful here. Okay, so while this is launching, I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna close this off.
So what I'll do is, sorry, I'm just quickly pulling up some Terraform I have here locally that I can show. Okay. It's always useful to see the comparison. But no, continue first. We're going to follow your stuff, and then I'll pop that in at the end. I don't want to derail today's session.
You're not derailing. It's fine. It's fine. So, I mean, the goal is that we create something today with CDK. And CDK, I'm going to be using the TypeScript version of CDK. It's not because I'm a TypeScript god. It's just because the most examples out there are in TypeScript. So I find myself quite capable of doing TypeScript on CDK because I'm just used to it. So, okay. So to get started, if you have never used CDK before, I would advise you that you go to the AWS CDK, whatever, right? You find the Cloud Development Kit, and there's basically instructions how to get started with Cloud Development Kit. And mind you, there is no CDK dashboard. There is no CDK part of the web interface, right? So it's not like CloudFormation where you upload your CDK. No, no. Everything is actually run through the command line. So you write your templates. Of course, you don't have to use Vim. You can use any text editor, right? I would advise you if you have not worked with TypeScript or any of these languages before, use some editor that has built-in IntelliSense or all those features available, so you can kind of benefit from them. And I know that I also benefit from those things, even though I'm using Vim. So the concept is basically you will install the module. Like in my case, I will install CDK as a node module. So you need to have node package management available to you. And well, actually, let's start. I mean, why not? Let's go to repos and let's create a repository. Let's call it, how can we call it? mkdir.
I think let me quickly grab the screen just before we get this, because I just want to
take your
show
time.
people.
I'm going to do something here.
Yeah, I want to quickly show how or what Terraform looks like. So let's just make this a little bit big. Oh, wait, wrong screen. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I just confused myself. So basically, if you compare Terraform, you can see this is what the syntax looks like for raw resources. And what you can see over here is actually my DNS that I'm busy sorting out here, because I had multiple registrars and I'm on a mission to simplify my life. So you'll see that it's written in what's called HashiCorp language, HCL, HashiCorp configuration language. So it's JSON-like, but it's not quite JSON, because you can see there aren't any extra commas, and sometimes you've got unquoted strings in here as well. So as Darko mentioned, it's written in Go, so you've got access to Go language structures as well. So for example, for loops, if statements, those kind of things you can embed inside these. So you can, for example, do string interpolation, all that. And it also makes use of the underlying AWS credential set. So when you, for example, configure a different providers to interact with AWS, here you can see I've actually split mine across multiple different accounts, because that's just how I do my deployments. And here you don't see any credentials here, so I can happily share this repo and open it up. Nobody can see it because of the underlying AWS CLI isn't configured correctly. It can't communicate with the right AWS accounts. Also, I have got some, if you really want to know about Terraform, have a look at my YouTube channel. I will share both of ours in the chat quickly. I'm busy finishing up a 5-part getting started series on that should launch hopefully in the next week.
Yep. Okay, cool. Terraform is, we can also do at one point some talk on Terraform. I mean, Terraform, here's the thing. Terraform is not an AWS product, but doesn't matter, right? So Terraform is a tool that enables you, the cloud builders, to build the cloud. So, hey, it doesn't really matter. And there's a question here from William. Is CDK going to take over Terraform? No. I mean,
no.
Especially with these things, it really depends on what your preference is. And again, HashiCorp themselves actually built CDK to provision Terraform. So what people are trying to do is enable other people to write their code of choice, right? So you have this, if you started with infrastructure as code way back when CloudFormation was in its infant stage, you would have to do JSON, and JSON is horrible. Like JSON is not readable. I mean, I understand the benefits of JSON, but it's not readable. And having somebody do that, and one of the first complaints that from people from CloudFormation when it first came out was like, how am I supposed to write so much JSON? And the same thing is with YAML. YAML is readable, but YAML is horrible. So why not give the people the chance to expand or actually use their language skills? A lot of people in computer science use things such as Python and JavaScript, and why not take that experience and knowledge and help you build a cloud? So I don't see a reason why HashiCorp or Terraform actually will ever go away. So it's just another option.
And I think also two very important things to understand here is the first one being that it's not a winner takes all market. There's a lot of space for different tools. There can be more than one thing that actually comes out as the main way of doing it. And the second important part is that we want to make your life easier as AWS to use the cloud. So if there are other tools, so you'll see us do blog posts on Terraform and other open source projects and things. Even if you can say, oh, but doesn't Terraform compete with CloudFormation? The answer is no, it doesn't. It fits a different need. And also, if you find that a better way to do AWS, definitely do it.
It's your choice. It gives you the ability to do that. So JSON, you can do JSON in YAML. That really works out of the box. But doing YAML into JSON is another thing. My problem with JSON, if you want to do any kind of raw code in JSON, for example, user data, you have to escape every line. So Yeah. So well, actually, let's go back to this thing, and let's create, or actually, let's install CDK. So to install CDK, no matter if you're using Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, you need to have npm installed, and what you need to do is sudo npm install AWS CDK. Now, I'm using sudo here because I'm installing a CDK globally, which you potentially may or may not want to do. I'm lazy, so I'm gonna just do that. And this is basically gonna install CDK now globally on my laptop. And it's gonna be available. Actually, has it updated? No, it's the same version. So it says it's updated, but it's actually the same version that I used before. Now, once I have CDK installed, I can do CDK dash version. And here I will see which is the current version. And yeah, 155 is the latest one as of, what is it, 31st of July, 2020. So let's create an application. So it's very easy to get started with it. You can just do CDK init app and then language. So you define which language you're going to do it, because CDK actually, CDK generates the entire structure for you to be used, right? So there's a whole lot of scaffolding required for CDK to work. Well, it's not required, but it's the best practice. So if you do CDK init app, it's going to create all of those things for you. And actually, to get the languages supported, you can do CDK. I think there's a command on CDK that you can actually get the current languages supported. And that is somewhere. I know that there is a command somewhere, CDK. I forgot. Basically, there's a way you can get the currently supported languages. But if you do CDK language, if I do npm, no, sorry, CDK init, and if I break the language, will it tell me the supported ones? Yes, okay. So the current supported ones are C#, F#, Java, JavaScript, Python, and TypeScript. So, let's do TypeScript, right? So this will install all the packages, all the things I need for my CDK application, right? So, and yes, as Mr. Roger asks, would CDK be able to generate CloudFormation? Absolutely, and CDK does that. Basically, that's the whole point of CDK. CDK generates very complicated CloudFormation templates. And while this is creating, actually, let me show you. So if I go here to lib, and this is actually a stack I've done yesterday on stream. So this thing has 86 lines of code, right? This is my 86 line of code CDK thing. And if I do CDK synth to a temp file, it actually will, CDK synth command will synthesize a CloudFormation template. So one of the things I like to do is cat temp file and word count list. It has 555 lines of CloudFormation. So from 87 lines of CDK, you get 555 lines of CloudFormation, which is not fair because it actually makes a CloudFormation template very complex. It has a lot of lines. It has a lot of, it's very capable to do things in different regions. So it's an optimized CloudFormation template. So, but yeah, back to this. Cool. So we have actually created now our first CDK application. And if you look at what's present here, you will see that there's a bunch of files. Well, the directory structure is the following. The bin directory. This is your entry point into your CDK application. This is where you actually define your CDK app, because just to kind of step back a bit, CDK has three concepts. There's an app, a stack, and a resource, right? So you have an app, which you can have multiple stacks in the app. And with the stack, within the stack, you can have multiple resources. And resources are basically your AWS resources. So within this app, I'm currently going to define just a single stack. And then the stack is actually being defined, or actually the resources and the stack is being defined from a file in the lib directory here. So those are the current things we need to think about. Once we go into like testing CDK, there's also the test directory where you can actually define your tests by using some native JavaScript testing utilities like Jest and the CDK assertion library. But that's a story for another time. I think once we get to the part where we test CDK, we'll talk about more testing. So today we're going to build something very simple. I don't really know what. So let's open up a library file. or our construct where we're actually going to write our code. So Cobus, what are we going to build?
Well, in terms of, I think what would be useful is let's start off with what's a good place to start? I know there's some nice constructs.
Where do you start when building anything?
Well, I would say code build jobs, because we need to be able to build the job. So I think
we need a repository.
Oh, yes. Wait, sorry. Don't you just code on your notepad and get done?
Yeah, of course. I make it in zip files and just send it out on floppy disks. So let's actually, I suggest that we start with so my goal is to kind of build an application, right? So Cobus and I actually discussed this before. We want to build like a container-based application or something like that. It's a similar thing that I did on my stream, but with CloudFormation. So doing that, the same thing here through CDK. So build a container-based application, but let's walk backwards. Let's start with a pipeline to deploy our application to containers, right? So first things first, let's build a pipeline. So what are the things we need for our pipeline, or what are the requirements for a pipeline? We need a code repo, right? Then we need a build job, because we're going to be building containers, so we need a build job. Then we need a pipeline itself, right? And I think that will be good for now. Later on, we're going to be needing a container, or well, ECS. Let's call it ECS. We're going to be using ECS here, and afterwards DNS, maybe some CDN, and what else do you think we're going to make this super fancy application? So it's going to be a serverless application, because we're going to be using Fargate, but
what
it's going to be a simple application. No databases, nothing else. So we need.
So I would say after the third one, that when we've done the pipeline, I want us to solve the chicken and egg problem where we add our CDK to that pipeline. So the first thing is we let you create the bare minimum to be able to run the CDK inside the pipelines, because otherwise it's very easy to just show, hey, just use it as code, do automatic deployment, but we're not going to show you how. So we first need to tackle that.
But also, as Alex says, let's create a database as well. Why not?
Yeah, we can add an RDS instance there, or DynamoDB, or whatever flavor we feel like.
Yeah, we'll think about it. But today we're going to mostly cover these three things, I think. This is something we're going to be able to do today. So let's start off with a code repo. So code repository is going to be basically code commit, AWS code commit. And actually, to make some room here, I'm going to do this. It's horrible, I know.
And also, I think just to let people not worry too much, we're going to use code commit to illustrate how you would create everything from scratch, but we'll post this all to GitHub afterwards. So don't worry, there will be a link to it.
Yeah, available. Now, how to get started with this, and this is also like I can go say, oh, I know how to get started with this, and I just keep on typing. But let me show you how you as a person who is starting with CDK would do this. I'm like, okay, I need a code commit repository in CDK. So AWS CDK code commit. And basically, almost all the time, the first result will be the link to the API reference. And on the overview page, you will most likely see a very simple example how to do this. And that's all you need, right? So, but first thing I need a code commit module, because this is actually using the node module for every specific service. So what I have here, I'm only importing CDK from the CDK core. I need more, right? So I need to import as well, like the code commit module. So let's do that. So going here, let me go to repos. Where is this bean streaming thing? Yes. So npm install. Oh, no. npm.
Nom install. The new package manager that brings you cookies.
Install, AWS code commit, right?
Sorry, I just quickly need to open up my office door because my dog wants to go out.
Okay.
So
I'm actually installing. Hello, doggy. You should keep that dog more on the streams. It will be more fun.
Definitely not. She has definitely not. She's very naughty, but very fun.
She's very naughty. Okay. So we'll call her CDK the dog. So npm install. I'm actually installing this thing locally and not not globally. So because it's going to be only installed within my directory, and that's the best practice because you keep a specific version of code commit or a node module locally as well. So it's also very. I haven't even come to the point where we discuss version dependencies and version management on TypeScript. Maybe some JavaScript and TypeScript experts in the chat can explain that a bit because I'm by no means an expert on that, but it's very important to pin versions. I'm not doing that right now because I'm horrible. But if you go to your package JSON, not that, if you package JSON, you will actually see which versions are currently required and installed. So like the dependencies here. Now it's just taking anything over 155, which can be potentially good, but potentially bad as well, because things can break. So if you want to make sure that you have a long living specific CDK application pinned to a specific version of the code, please pin this version here. Do not just leave anything above 155.
So for those not familiar with this versioning scheme, it's often people refer to semverse or semantic versioning, which in theory has the promise where the first, it's comprised of three numbers separated by full stops. The first one being the major version, then the minor version, and then the patch version. And in theory, how it should work is that let's say I release a version called 1.00. Then the very last number, if I find, for example, a bug and I fix it, it'll be 1.01, which means it's got all the same features as 1.00, but there was something that was fixed, but it shouldn't change, let's say, for example, the API contracts or anything.
Right.
Then you come along, you add some more features, we add like another endpoint or two, and now we release version 1.10. Incrementing the second number indicates additional features. And then when we make breaking changes, that's when you bump the first number, the major version number. So you should expect to be able to understand by looking at the number that this is what's being implied by these changes. The unfortunate truth here is that no one forces you. It literally is a string. So that's why pinning the versions is useful.
Correct. So I'm not doing that because why not? But let's keep it like this for now, and later on we'll make sure to pin those, because here's the thing: if you don't pin those, I've actually had CDK code which used to work, and then I've cloned my repository and then just run npm install, got the new versions of my code, and it breaks. So code commit repository. Let's start. So here what we need to do: const, we call it repo, or actually no, wait, we need to import a module, right? So import code commit from AWS code commit. Perfect. So I've imported that module. Now create a repository. I will create a constant here called repo, and it's going to be new code commit repository. It has to be within this context. So this is where we define the context or the construct, the scope. It's going to be this. Let's give it a logical name for the ID. So as any good infrastructure as code, you need to put my in front of it. So my repo, because why not? And then you have to define some properties. Now, which properties we need to define here, and we can actually go back to the console and we will see if we go here to the construct on the left-hand side, and it will say props, which repository props are required. And here, the only prop that is required is actually the repository name, because it doesn't have a question mark next to it. So if I do repository name, that should be sufficient. So repository name, and let's call it bean streaming web app. Cool. And as any good infrastructure architect, describe things what you're doing. This will host our bean.
No. You need to use the comment. It needs to say this is the bean streaming web app, because that definitely explains what it is, right?
Yes, of course. So this is the bean streaming web app. That's the best comment everywhere. Do not touch. So long ago, when I used to work as a sysadmin, we had this big proxy server. It uses Squid as a proxy server, and it was configured through configuration files. So what I did is my colleague and I, who were the sysadmins, anytime somebody would make a change, would comment in the file who made the change and what. So that was a common thing. And like, do not touch this change, and you don't even know what it's doing, right? Just do not do this, and your name next to it. And then if somebody wants to complain, just they'll ring you up. So JavaScript folks, or TypeScript folks, do you put commas at the end of your last property or not? I do, because I saw it that way, but I'm not sure is it the best way to do it. It works. It's just semantics.
I personally don't like that. I understand why they do it. It's less error prone in future, but the
Exactly.
purist to me says no. And just
I
to
know. I know.
quantify that, I came from a Java background initially, way back in the day. My first love, that plus Eclipse. So,
Okay. Now this will work. Now this is proper code. Now if I go and open up here and do npm run build. Oh yeah, npm run build. This command is something you need to execute every time you make changes to your code, because your code is written in TypeScript, and TypeScript is basically a statically typed version of JavaScript. So it needs to compile TypeScript to JavaScript. So if you do npm run build, it's going to run TSC, which is basically the TypeScript compiler, and it's going to compile it to JavaScript. So if there's no errors here, this should be fine. And there's no errors here. So very good. Now, once this is done, let me zoom into this, CDK deploy, this will actually, hopefully, work. So let's have a look. Yeah,
so
it's
just
deploying.
quickly,
So it's going to create myself a CloudFormation change set, and it's going to create a code commit repository. So very good. We're on a roll.
awesome. Sorry, I just quickly want to say the new 1080p feature, I'm happy to say, is working really well. The stream looks
working
very
really well?
crisp. Yeah, and
So
the
the
text is
problem,
very
yeah,
readable.
yeah, we had a problem with the 720p, especially because we do a lot of code, and yeah, code on 720p is not the most readable thing. And I also try to make it as big as possible here. Okay, this works, but let's go back to the actual code. So let's do more. That's not enough, right? So what is the next thing we need to do? We need to do build. But here's the thing. We need to define a project, right? And it's actually done a bit different here, right? So we need to define a project within the pipeline itself. So how does this actually look? So let me have a look. So we need to do a build project. Let me see how this is approachable. So we go to code build. We're going to be using code build to build our project. So again, on the same API reference, you can find it here. Very simple. We define a project. Phases build. We can also define things within we can define like things like a build spec and all the parts within this. But here's the thing, because we're going to be using code pipeline, and the way we handle artifacts is different when you do it with code pipeline than if you would just do standard vanilla code build. Because we're going to be using code pipeline here, I'm going to start with a pipeline right now. So going here, actually, let's do it a bit different here. I'm going to do, how are we going to do it?
So quickly interjecting, let's just think quickly about the architecture we want to do here. Do we want to have a CDK stack that does self-referencing where we run it by hand the first time on our side to define the code job that then runs CDK? Or do we want to have an external repo that we would define, for example, new repositories and new projects that all it does is sets up a single code build job that then kicks off the rest? Or which approach do we want to go for today?
So what I'm trying to build here right now is just because this web app is going to be a web application running on containers. So this is going to be a Docker image. So I'm actually building right now, I'm building a pipeline just for that, right? I would like to build a separate pipeline for code CDK. So this is not that pipeline. So this is going to be the pipeline that's going to just build our container code, right? The same thing if you remember you doing on Terraform, I'm going to do the same thing here. On top of that, later on, I'm going to build the pipeline that's going to test the code of CDK per se, right? So I want to separate those two things because building containers is very different from testing just this infrastructure. It's not a pure serverless application. If this was a pure serverless application, yeah, maybe I can keep it all in the same repo. But yeah, we get the chicken and egg problem here. What do you create first, right? I mean, you could technically do this with itself. So you can commit to this thing. I can create a pipeline within CDK that will do this thing, right? It's very much possible. I think the only problem it may run into is the final deploy stage, because it would not be able to deploy it fully because the last action there's still a pending action on deploy. So if you made modifications to the pipeline within the pipeline, I think that would be a kind of a problem. But I think we can tackle that problem once we get to it. So as of now, I want to build a pipeline that's gonna take our Docker files and our data, our application code, and it's gonna build Docker images, and it's gonna upload them to ECR. That's it. Actually, it's gonna deploy them to ECS. So let's actually build the build stage. But actually, we're gonna deploy the pipeline first, because we need the pipeline to define a whole bunch of things. So how to create a pipeline? Code build, code pipeline, like that. So of course, we need the code pipeline module, but it's very simple. We just define a simple pipeline. It's just this piece of code, literally nothing else. So, but we need the new module here. So going down here, actually like that, npm install code pipeline. And we also need code pipeline actions, because we're going to be doing some actions as well. AWS CDK, AWS code pipeline. Cool. So we need these two modules available so we can use them later on in our stack. So did I do it correctly?
So the main difference for me, who's not an expert on CDK, between the code pipeline and the code pipeline actions, would that be code pipeline is literally just to be able to install a pipeline, and if with the action ones, I can actually set the individual steps that do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's
for some reason it's separated into two modules. I don't know why, but that's how it works, right? So you have your specific, you have a pipeline just created, and then you add actions to that pipeline using the code pipeline's actions module. So
out of interest, can I do anything with just the code pipeline section on its own, or do I always have to have actions?
So with the code pipeline itself, you can set up some artifacts. You can add stages. And that's it. So no actions. You can create stages, but no actions.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun, but yeah, I mean that's how it's done. So again, going here, zooming in, and let's add this again. So code pipeline, like that. Like that, and then.
So I think quickly for some of the people that have joined us recently, this is the second session of Bean Streaming for this week. Darko and myself have now secured a slot where we will be doing this twice a week on Mondays and Fridays at 11 a.m. Central Eastern Time, or South African Standard Time, whatever SAST stands for. Being caught off guard here, I don't know what my own time zone is. And we will be building things starting off with CDK. And the intention is that we always show you how to build things and how to use the documentation, and also how we make mistakes. So you can learn from us mistyping and how do we figure out the problems to show you. Right. And then you get the end result, which is a repo that works perfectly, obviously, the first time you use it, like all demos should, right?
Yeah, and also I'm going to make this repo public as of the end of this stream. So you're going to see the point in time what it looks right now. So, and we're going to continue later on. So it's not going to be just a finished product. So if you wish to follow along, feel free. Again, we're going to be making mistakes. Hope you enjoy that. So pipeline. So pipeline. We need to define a pipeline. How does the one do that? Overview. And I'm just going to basically do this. Copy and open, paste, bam. But I'm going to do my first pipeline. That's a horrible thing. It's my pipeline.
It's also not true. You've done pipelines before, so you can't call it your first pipeline.
Exactly. But you know what? I'm going to do one more thing. I am actually going to define a pipeline name, because I have not defined a pipeline name. So to define a pipeline name, you set a property, which is pipeline name. Yes, pipeline name. I'm going to call it Bean Stream Web App Pipeline, because people need to know that this is a pipeline actually. Cool. We have created a pipeline. So now, time to do some build stuff. When it comes to building, So how does a pipeline look? We have code pipeline time. We have not discussed code pipeline. I have a code pipeline here somewhere set up because we need to visualize this code pipeline.
So quickly, for those not familiar with our pipeline, it's literally the different build steps that you have to do. For example, your code building, your checking out, your testing, deployments.
Yes.
And the reason it's called a pipeline is you can define it in either a series, so one action, then the next, then the next, and then the next, or you are able to, on certain what's called stages, actually branch out and do different things. So in future, we'll actually play a lot with this.
So this is not a proper discussion on pipelines, but we can define it. So as Cobus said, this is a pipeline here. So this big green box, that's a stage, right? And it's a source stage in this case. And that source stage has an action called, well, code commit. So it's my code commit action is here, right? Basically where I get my code. The next stage is build. This is where there's a single action called code build. On this pipeline, I actually have the test stage as well. It's doing a bunch of test staging. So this is a pipeline I've built for CloudFormation testing. So it's similar, but in essence, we have a test stage and we have 3 actions here within the test stage. And the final stage is the deploy stage, which has 3 actions for deployments. Perfect. Now, today we're going to be doing a bit simpler. We're going to create a source stage. We're going to create a build stage, and we're going to create a deploy stage. And so what do we need to do right now? We've created a repository, that's fine, but we need to create a test stage. So we need to work on pipeline stages. So if we do like this, stage, source stage and stuff. So we need to define a bunch of things for our source stage because we created a pipeline. Now we need to add stages to it, or we need to add specific stages and actions. So to do that, actually, we need to first create one thing. We need artifacts. So the way that code pipeline works is that between those stages, it passes artifacts, which can be your commit, current commit, your code build output, or whatever, right? So let's actually create an artifact for source output. So let's call it like where am I? Yes, const source output equals new code pipeline, and there's artifact, right? And I can just do it like this. So I've defined an artifact right now. An artifact object is going to be used later on within my code pipeline. Cool. What else? So time to define an action. So to define an action, you can actually do the following. You need to use code commit actions. So code pipeline actions. If you go to overview, you will see how you define those actions here, hopefully. Right, here you go. This is basically what I'm doing. So we need to define source output. So we defined an artifact here, and the source action is basically going to be code pipeline actions, code commit source action. Perfect. So let's do that. So const source action equals new code pipeline actions source action, right? Is it code commit source action? Because you can do multiple source actions. You can see there's an S3, ECR, GitHub, Bitbucket, and code commit source action. So it doesn't have to be code commit. In this case, we're doing code commit because why not? So code commit source action, and now I have to define a bunch of properties as always. So first thing is action name. That's a mandatory thing you need to do. And we're going to call it code commit, right?
Well, code commit checkout maybe. Just make it a little bit more clear.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you think about the action, what action am I taking?
Right.
I'm not committing code, I'm checking out.
That's true. Repository, we need to define a repository. Now, we're going to basically just reference the repository we created here, like that. Super simple. If it was an external repository, we could also define an external repository here. But since we are creating the repository here, it's already available on line 14 as an object. And yeah, that should be pretty fine. And I think we need to define a branch. Yeah, which branch we're going to be using. I'm going to be using the main branch. And last but not least, we need to define the output. So I mentioned that a pipeline has outputs or artifacts. So once I define an output here, like that, it's going to be source output. And that's it. So we've created now a source action, and this should basically work. Now, the action is created, but it's not in our pipeline yet. So one of the things we need to do here is we need to actually add a stage to that pipeline. So we have a pipeline here. If I can just do pipeline, and pipeline has a method. I think we've saw that before. If I go to pipeline, there's a method here that says add stage. So I need to add a stage to my pipeline, and that stage basically consists of stage options, which are stage name and actions. So simple as that. I will do pipeline dot add stage, and then just define a whole bunch of properties. So like that. And what is the thing I need to do? Stage name, right? Stage name is going to be source, like that. And then the actions are going to be, it has to be an array. So it has to be within these square brackets. And I'm going to just do source action. And that's it. So literally that's all I need in this case to create a simple pipeline with just a single stage and a single action. So if I would, in essence, if I would run this right now, npm run build, I think this would work. Famous last words. Come on.
Let's see.
It's taking too long. Also, my laptop is gonna die. Okay, cool. Let me just plug in my power.
That's probably why it's a bit slow, because it's always trying to save power and be lazy.
It's trying to save power, and it's streaming 1080p. So it's not a new laptop. So CDK deploy. This will actually make changes to my existing template, hopefully, where it's gonna basically.
So just quickly, the difference between build, deploy, and synth.
Let me figure this out. What's through new error, validation error list, validation failed. Pipeline must have at least 2 stages. Oh, okay. Okay, it's not going to work. I need 2 stages in a pipeline because a pipeline with a single stage is not a pipeline. So feel free to say what you wanted to say. I'm going to just go back to my code.
No, I was actually asking because I've seen the commands, but I haven't worked with it enough to know the exact difference between do I just do build and deploy normally with when I get into my dev cycle, or where does synth fit into that?
Synth in general, you don't even have to use. Synth is kind of built automatically into code in the CDK deploy. But synth is just, so I have customers that use CDK in a pure CloudFormation form, that they just use it to generate CloudFormation, and then they use CloudFormation testing
okay.
out there. So that's also a way to do it. Also, some people like to control what CDK does, so they synth it and then look at the code itself. So that's also a way to do it.
Makes sense.
As well.
Okay.
It's pretty much, don't update me things. Thank you. So yeah, we are basically not done. So we need to add a new stage. So the next stage is actually going to be build, and let's call it, build stage, and stuff. Now, the same like before, so we're going to be using code build here. And code build is, Cobus, tell us what code build is.
So code build is a awesome tool. I really love it. Basically what it boils down to is the ability to build code, but the execution environment, I feel, is where the bigger value is. So it consists of, your build will run inside a Docker container. So you can use some of the pre-built ones that AWS supplies, or you can build your own one. So install all the tooling that you need in there to do all the various builds. And then where that comes in is, so firstly, but a lot of people understand how to create Docker containers. So that gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of what do I need inside my build environment. Then the second part is that the actual definition language for it is a YAML file called a build spec file. I don't know if you have got a sample in front of you for that.
YAML, I can find it. Wait a second. Give me a second.
Cool. Otherwise, I can actually pull up one here as well. Let me just find it quick.
Wait. Here we go. Build spec.
Cool. Let us take a look at it.
It's a very simple build spec here. It doesn't build anything. It actually just lints things. So I'm using code build here for testing instead of building. So, but yeah.
But I mean, what you can see here is you've got the pre-build stage, the build stage, and then there's also a post-build stage. At the bottom, you can see on line 9 to 11, you can define artifacts that it exposes externally. It has got the ability to do cache files for you as well. So let's say you're building a Node app that you want to cache the Node modules folder, but you don't necessarily want to deal with how do I zip this, store it somewhere, bring it back between. You just add a cache section over there. So it's very, very nice to define your build jobs. And a bit of background here is that my background is that I initially started with when it was still called Hudson years ago, which is now known as Jenkins after it was forked. And at one point in my career, I worked at a company where Jenkins was used extensively with a few hundred plugins. Now, that was lovely because if you want to do something, well, there's a plugin for that. until we got to the day where, hey, we need to upgrade the Jenkins server or move to something else. And then we had this massive nightmare of we can't upgrade the plugins are incompatible. It just became a mess where we got stuck in a world. And that's the point where I started going, well, I want to be in control of my build. So having a container that I build myself with all the tooling that I need, along with the ability to specify all the commands, is basically what you need. And then you need some kind of execution engine. And that's where Cobalt comes in. And the nice part also is it's per second billing, and you get 1,000 minutes, I believe, on the free tier. So effectively, builds are often free. So that's the short answer to code build.
But it's super great. And we're going to be using code build here to actually build our containers. The same thing we did before, it's very similar to what are we going to do. So we need code build, and we need to create an artifact, because code build is going to output an artifact. We need to create a code pipeline action. And then we need to basically also create a code build project. So, and add the stage. But before we do any of that, we need to install code build. So it's again an npm module install at AWS CDK, and it's AWS code build. Simple as that. So I'm going to install this module. While that is installing, I'm going to actually go to here and import it like that.
I actually think I'm going to spin up a stream on Monday or Tuesday. I'll publish it on Twitter and LinkedIn when I'm going to do it, where I want to do this but for Terraform, because I've been going through this entire process to create my YouTube video, but I think it'll be useful to do it in a single stream as well.
Sure.
Because that could be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so build stuff. What did we say? We need an artifact, right? So we can do const build output equals new code pipeline that artifact. That's fine. We're going to be using this artifact because code build is going to actually output something. So that's fine. And what do we need to do? Build project. Yes, we need to create a build project. So build project. I want to talk about those things. So code build has these thing called projects, and projects is actually where you define how your build is going to look like. Now, you can do it very simple, like just, I think if there's a pipeline, there's a code commit source. One second, there must be a pipe. There's a pipeline. There we go. So pipeline project. You can do a pipeline project as well. But I think I'm going to.
Yeah, remember what you can do is when you create the code build job with code pipeline, it's literally use that build job. Code build job. So that's what that example would do.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to just create a basic pipeline without any property set. So I'm not going to do any build spec. I'm going to do build spec later on within my code repository itself. So I just going to create a pipeline project. So it's going to be new code build pipeline project. And I'm going to just use this context and going to do my build project. And that's it. I don't need anything else. This should be sufficient. So once this is created, now I need to basically, as the same before, as we had a source action, I need to create a build action. So let's do that. So const build equals new code pipeline. Code pipeline actions. It's build action, code build action.
I think while you're typing, any questions from our viewers at the moment? Yeah. So far with anything, please, this whole idea is to be interactive and help you if we missed anything or don't explain anything properly. So please send us questions if you've got as we go along.
Build, call it action, code build. So action name, project. I need to define which project I'm going to be using here. So the project is going to be the build project itself. Not build action, build project. Oh, that's the hour. And
time flies when you're having fun.
I need to define an input because it requires an input, and the input is actually going to be the source output. So this is why we have created a source output. So source output is going to be our input, and our output is going to be our outputs, because it's a multiple, is going to be our build output. Perfect.
So for those who are doing this in the console, what happens actually is if you create a build project first and you connect your source repository via the user interface. For example, let's say you choose code commit. it'll create the build job on its own with that checkout
Correct.
built in. And then as soon as you create a new pipeline and you connect your build job to it, I believe it splits it out into two sections. The one that does the checkout for you, and then it becomes an explicit build step. So it does a bit of that for you.
Exactly. So build stage is fine. If I save this, I need to add a stage, right? So back to our pipeline, the same thing we did before, pipeline dot add stage, right? And the stage is going to be here, actually just the same thing as before. Stage name is going to be build, right? So this is build. And then actions are going to be we're gonna have a single action, so it's gonna be just build action, and that's it. Now I think this should work. So, but let's try npm run build. No, build.
If it does work, I would suggest we actually do a commit quickly, just to snapshot that. It's one of the things I always forget to do. I code away for 4 or 5 hours and without committing, and then can I go back to that stage that was working, and then like tears.
Exactly. But let's create a repository for this as well. Bean stream CDK infra, right?
Yeah,
I guess it's gonna be public. Here be some CDK. Create repo.
Oh, interesting. A little bit late now on the click, but we can come back to that afterwards just to add a license. I actually had that recently where someone wanted to use, it was literally just a makefile.
Okay.
But they said, listen, because of their corporate due diligence, they're not allowed to touch any public repo unless there's a license file that says they can do so. But we can go back to that.
We'll add that one. That's fine. Because CDK is actually sitting in its own repository. I can just do this, basically add this. I can push this thing. I can also check out B. Oh, sorry. Git check out B main. Let's switch to branches, and then.
Cool. Just while you're doing that, we have a question here, which is, are there any info diagrams for this container? So at the moment, not yet.
No.
What we'll be doing today is focused on setting up our build pipeline and getting to the point where we can get our container built and our infrastructure built. Specifically, we want to set up the infrastructure to allow us to then, when we do the rest of the infrastructure, do it via our pipeline. So we're solving the chicken and egg problem, but we will in the future episodes actually do that. The actual diagram for the container, we'll be going with a fairly standard architecture, which is a load balancer with some Fargate services exposed via that load balancer, and we could definitely draw that. I think what we'll do is we'll actually do that in the episode when we get ready to build that infrastructure, use one of the publicly available tools to draw it, and then once we've done that, then we actually go and build it.
Yeah, and this repo is actually available right now, so if you want to check it out, it's available. It's very raw, so bear that in mind. Another question I would like to address here from Mr. Zarif. What are the extra benefits of using CDK other than YAML troubles avoidance? What are the things that CDK can but CloudFormation can't? I would say that it's easier to do things in CDK because it's a more opinionated way to do things. There are a lot more sensible defaults, so the actual code writing is easier. Plus, you get all the benefits of a generic programming language to do, such as reading off disks, doing more conditional loops, and doing more logic within your conditional logic inside of your templates right now. So those are kind of some of the benefits. I mean, I'm sure that people can point out a lot more, but those are kind of the things that stick out for me, and the reason I use CDK is makes my life much more easier. But I don't think there's anything that CDK cannot. Well, there is. So CDK cannot do cross account. CloudFormation can do stack sets that can do cross account deploys. CDK does not yet support that. So. But yeah,
just quickly, Darko, I just want to share that link. Can you quickly rename the repo on GitHub to Bean Stream, not Stram? I just picked up a typo there.
Whoops. 1 second.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure that when we post it, if future people rewatch this and click on the link,
Stream,
then it makes
Bean Stream CDK infra.
Yeah, just put cool. Let me just double check, because I've had a bad week of sharing
bad links.
Links. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to make sure that I don't keep making mistakes and people go like, oh, the guy that doesn't know how to copy and paste.
Also,
I prefer to be known for something.
The README file is going to be much better, so it's not going to be this. So we're going to actually do some more context in the README file. So if you're interested, We're gonna update it. It's just a snapshot in time. So, did we do npm run build? Did this work?
Let's see. Bum ba bum 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 ba bum bum. We really need music on the channel,
If we do.
especially if we can code the or configure the stream decks a little bit with that like button that says dramatic music or suspenseful reveal music.
Reveal music. Drum roll. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see if CDK with deploy will work. I think it should. Pipeline must have. Oh, did I not add a stage? What?
Did you? I think you did the. Just double check.
Pipeline add stage.
There's the build stage.
There's a source stage and the build stage is here. I think I've done. Okay.
That's
One
interesting.
moment.
Let's have a look at what this is. Yeah.
npm. So see, let's try to go. npm run build. Types. Thank you. Mr. Skeptical Penguin, watch the copyright music. Yeah, there are copyright music. Well, I know, especially on my stream, I use music that's publicly available. So also there's some music that you can actually buy, and I did that from a few artists on Bandcamp that you can buy their music, and it's not there is no like content match and all those things. So they make sure that when you buy it, you can use it for those things. So thank you to those artists. So.
But I just want to say thank you, Skeptical Penguin, if you think that my singing was good enough to warrant them applying copyright infringements. Thank you.
There you go. So CDK deploy. Let's see why this doesn't work. It should work, but a lot of things should happen. Code build.
Yeah, and definitely Skeptical Penguin. Let me just put this up on the screen. For those not aware, as soon as you can be the best person with coding and typing, as soon as if you're doing it in an empty room with no one listening, it works beautifully. As soon as there's one person watching, you might not even know that they're watching. You'll start making mistakes. It's just how it works. That's why live demos are so difficult. So let's see quickly. Let me see if I can figure this out as well, seeing as I'm not an expert.
So the errors here.
It's complaint.
The pipeline must have at least 2 stages, and I have 2
Yes.
stages.
So yes, but what I'm pondering is on which code line. Where do I see the exact code line that this is happening on?
It's Node, so I'm not sure.
Let's have a look here. App.ts. So it actually 112.
So this is the synthesis problem. So it fails on the synthesis. So the problem you see here is actually within the so action must name. Oh wait. I found it.
Oh,
action name must match regular expression. Aha.
Yes. If only we didn't jump straight to the stack trace. I've done that so many times.
But I can't have I can have dashes. I cannot have spaces. Ugh.
Yes, you can be dashing and daring, just not spacious and caring.
npm run build once more. It is the demo gods. It is the demo gods. Yes, of course. And you know when I'm stumped? When I start talking like this in my microphone and looking at the screen. So that's when I'm stumped. Okay, CDK deploy. Also, unfortunately, I have to type on my laptop because my laptop is streaming this to here and there's a massive delay. So I cannot look at the screen and type. So, oh, cool. So we actually see a bunch of things happening right now. So,
awesome.
Actually, let me...
This looks like a preview.
This looks... no, it's not a preview. It's not Terraform. It doesn't do previews. What it does, it actually shows you what IAM statement changes are going to show up because this is very important. You need to understand that some specific IAM changes are going to happen in order for all this to work. So it's going to do a bunch of, especially for code build, it gets these permissions to code build. As you can see, there's a bunch of S3, there's KMS as well. So it actually informs you what IAM changes are going to happen. And also if there are some security group changes, it also informs you and basically confirms, are you going to do this? And if you've noticed it before, that it would actually, on the code repo, it didn't show that because there were no IAM changes or no IAM policies attached to any of the code repo thing I've done before. So with this, I actually have to say, yeah, this is fine. I agree with your statement here, like that.
And also, I think while it's deploying now, just to understand why there are so many different IAM parts there that it actually exposes to you is that each portion of the infrastructure we're creating needs to have some kind of execution permission set. So, for example, if I want to run code build, that code build job has got a IAM role with some
Yeah,
policies attached to it. So, for example, I give it permission to push to ECR, which is Elastic Container Registry, where we store Docker images. Or it is allowed to, let's say, access a specific S3 bucket to push some information to. So that is the permission for your build job. Then we've got a pipeline job. Then our pipeline job has got a different security policy
yeah,
because it's only allowed to do certain things. So, and what CDK did there is you didn't see us code those IAM policies. It actually, I think, and Darko, please correct me here, is that it understands what the basic permissions are
yeah.
for those individual components
Exactly.
to do their job, and then creates that policy for you.
Yeah, so it creates basic permissions for a pipeline and your code build job. In this case, CDK has a lot of what we like to call sensible defaults, and of course you can change these things. And I would have to change these permissions because I'm going to be doing containers. So one of the things I need to do here is also add permission for my code build project to upload to my container registry. So that's going to happen in we're gonna do that in the next episode because that's when we do more things with actual containers. This is just setting up the base pipeline and a very long introduction to CDK. Also, there's a Mr. Peak of Humanity says, would having CFN lint inside of your IDE caught the extra space problem? No, because I am not writing CloudFormation code here. The problem was that basically when CDK was synthesizing or generating CloudFormation code, it found an error that this doesn't look like CloudFormation. It cannot be CloudFormation. So the error was actually caught within a CFN synth. It's a weird thing because my editor detects TypeScript code. So if I would make a TypeScript error, it would scream at me. But then in this between state, before we even have a CloudFormation template, CDK synthesizes that, and this is where it self caught an error. So yeah, I could have done basically one of the things I could have maybe just done CDK synth in the background constantly every time I save. That would catch the errors when I save. But I think that would take a lot of CPU cycles here. So yeah, this is creating. Just to discuss what are the next steps, we need to create an infrastructure. So we need to create ECS part because before we do the deploy part, because we're going to be deploying to ECS straight from Code Pipeline. Code Pipeline has a built-in way to deploy to Elastic Container Service. We're going to be doing it straight from there. But before we do any of that, we need to create a few things. We need to create everything we need to for ECS. So we need to create a repository, we need to create a cluster, we need to create a task definition, service, all of those things need to be created. And I think we're going to be jumping into that in the next episode because we have basically 15 minutes left and we're not going to be able to do that here. So I'm going to use these last 15 to 10 minutes to kind of just go over what we've done and how we did it. And if there's any other questions here in the chat, just throw them our way for sure. I'm going to make sure to this works as well, that it's not just an empty deploy because it can still fail.
So if I understand the route we're going to go now is then what we'll start doing on Monday is actually creating the base. So we're going to create another repo, and that'll be the one with our code and our Docker container and the infrastructure for it. So the load balancer, the actual build job for that.
No, I'm going to do it everything from here, right? Basically, going to do it all through CDK. So the ECS stuff, or it's going to be in the same CDK project. It doesn't have to be in the same file, but I'm going to do it from the same CDK project. What I basically want to build here is a whole application whole application infrastructure, let's call it that way. So the infrastructure for our application is a pipeline to deploy our application. It's going to be a ECS cluster or everything for ECS that's going to host our application, and the load balancer that's going to, load balance our application, and maybe some Route 53 and some CDN and whatnot, right? So it's going to be done all within CDK from the same. So when I do CDK deploy, it's going to deploy the entire thing. The only thing we need to do afterwards is we need to commit our Docker code into this code commit repository we've created, and then it's going to deploy that thing. So
okay, no, that sounds
does that
good.
make sense? Cool.
Yeah.
So it has successfully deployed. Yay. Let's go back to code pipeline, and we should be able to see our new pipeline here. So it's going to be bean stream. It's failed because there's no code. It was unable to trigger the pipeline because there is no code in the pipeline. So failed is fine. Well, in this case. So we see here that we have our source phase, source stage created with a code commit checkout action. And we also have the build stage with a code build action. And that's it, right? Nothing else. If I go to code commit here, it's going to actually open me this code commit repository called bean streaming web app. And it's an empty. So nothing happens there. And if you look at, go back to the code pipeline, somehow, pipelines.
Skeptical Penguin is making a comment that he or she can actually hear your fans spinning.
So Mr. Skeptical Penguin, it's not a Mac, I know, but it does sound like a Mac. It's actually an Ultrabook, a Dell Ultrabook, that has very bad thermals. So, and it's an Ultrabook from 2012, so it's an old laptop. So it's I think a third generation Intel i7 or something like that. So it's not modern by any means. Actually, what is it? I don't even know. NeoFetch. It's fourth generation Intel i7, so it's old, relatively old. So it struggles a bit when it comes to these things. But I like to use it for streaming because it's a very neat thing to code into. But yeah.
But I mean, putting into context, there's luckily the fourth generation, because I know between the third and the fourth there was quite a big jump in thermal management and efficiency. So at least, I mean, anything before the fourth gen was like super loud.
Yeah, I can say that it's very toasty. The laptop itself, it's very toasty. But yeah, it's okay, especially when it has to stream 1080p. So yeah, Dells are really good these days. Now new XPSs are great, but I'm waiting to get a proper Ryzen Mac, Ryzen laptop.
Oof.
So, source, and let's have a look at the build. If we click on the code build here, we're actually going to have just a look at the build project. It's a basic build project, nothing special. It uses the actual code build standard image 1.0. There's not even, I think it's not even created, like it doesn't use it's not even privileged. So we have to do a bunch of things here. We need to define like privileged mode and maybe change the image to the latest image. We need to do things such as add a specific role for this to be able to write to ECR, but that's something we're gonna be doing when we create ECR as well. So but yeah, this is like the basic model, the smallest one, I think. Super simple, and yeah.
So Rakagami is actually, or I really pronounce it as joking about no need for a heater in the winter. I actually find that when I switch on my desktop, because I use my desktop for streaming, and it's got a 1080 in it, and that's enough to heat the room to be comfortable enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I don't really.
I think my room. So can I show this on stream? I can. Yeah, why not? What is it? 8123, right? Yeah. So my room is. Oh, is this my password? Yes.
Oh, I only saw Hunter 2 there.
Hunter 2, yes. So my room is actually noticeably warmer when I start streaming, for example, compared to the living room. So
I want this.
That's because of the desktop. So yeah. So it's noticeably different when I start streaming and all those things, especially because of the lights and the desktop and whatnot. So if you want to see the difference, that's how it is.
Awesome.
So back to this thing. We've created a pipeline. So what did we do today? I just want to wrap this up just to not leave people hanging. So we've used CDK to build a project that we're going to host our web application in, and the application is going to run on containers, on ECS. Now, today we've done the following. We've created a part of the pipeline that's going to be used to build our application into containers and deploy it. So what we did is we've created a code commit repository where we're going to actually commit our application code. We've created a pipeline, and this pipeline is going to be used to orchestrate the build projects or the CI/CD aspect of my application. And we basically created some actions for that. We've created source stages and source actions for the pipeline. And we've created a code build project, and code build is a service we're going to be using to test, well, maybe test, yeah, why not? We can do testing as well. We can test and build our containers and upload them to ECR. So that's what we've done here, and we've introduced them into the pipeline by adding the stage pipeline and adding that action there. So this has been successful. It has been successfully deployed. It's running in my account. And also one thing to do here is to actually just to check it, add like that, git commit fixes to code build, git push origin main. So this is something I'm just going to push those changes up to the repository. That repository is available for you to check out if you want. I'm going to add the license there as well. I'm going to just modify the README file as well, so you can make sure to have all the legalities there as well. So it's this one. It's Darko-Meszaros /beanstream-CDK-infra. If you want to have a look here. There's another question from Mr. Peak of Humanity. If choosing to run code build project run inside a VPC, does CDK auto create a VPC endpoint if not present for code build before creating the code build pipeline?
I would expect it not. I'm fairly certain it doesn't, but what we can do is we can literally look at the CloudFormation and search for endpoint.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just look at the project here. If I define a VPC, I know I'm not created a VPC here, but let me see. VPC can be defined. So if I do VPC network to place the code build network interfaces. Do you want to do that?
I mean, my experience here would make me definitely think that it won't. The reason is as soon as you enable endpoints, some of them do have costs associated with them, and also does change your routing rules, which is something people usually need to explicitly be aware of.
So I'm going to do this temporary. Const VPC equals new npm install. I need a new module. This is not the part of the main show. This is just us testing things.
So just quickly, for those who are wondering what this is. So firstly, a VPC is a virtual private cloud. So it's when you set up a section of networking where you will be deploying your own resources and infrastructure into. Not all resources in AWS need to be deployed into a VPC, but for example, the container that we'll be spinning up and the load balancer does, because we need to control where we deploy them, and we need an IP range to make use to attach to the network interfaces, etc. Then what a endpoint is the ability to expose certain AWS services within this private network, because you can set up a VPC to not have internet access. There are ways you can actually use it to extend, let's say, your on-prem data center with setting up a VPN between your on-prem and this VPC, and then you can literally start spinning up additional resources and have your data center communicate with those without ever being able to touch the internet. So if they can't touch the internet and resources inside your VPC need to communicate with AWS services, they can't do that because normally they do that via publicly available HTTPS endpoints. So the endpoint takes that, does DNS remapping inside your VPC specifically to allow, and it actually creates an elastic network interface for some of the services. Otherwise, for others, it just does some interesting routing where you can now access the AWS services without leaving your VPC. And that's why it's important.
Yeah, exactly. So also one of the questions people come, why I'm not doing this from my laptop, and people ask me why I'm not doing this from my desktop, the thing, the coding, and why I'm using a laptop. I have no 1080p screens on my computer, and I think trying to stream a 4K screen would be slow. So
you can, but it just gets blurry.
It gets blurry, yeah. So yeah, I would need to get a separate 1080p screen or something like that to use my desktop for this. No. Okay, so it's deploying something now. I'm gonna wait. There's a security group. There's a whole lot of different things here. Let's actually see what it will do. Right. I really am interested to see how this will work. Will it create any sort of VPC endpoints or whatnot? And actually, we can have a look on if we go to CloudFormation. So as I mentioned, this does create CloudFormation. So if you go to the CloudFormation dashboard, you will actually see your stack being created. And I'm with Cobus here. I think it's not going to create a VPC endpoint, but yeah, let's have a look.
But what I was going to say is this is one of the things where, especially if you're learning new, pretty much anything new, is go and play an experiment.
Yes.
Because the best way of learning is when it breaks, because that teaches you that one thing does break. And after a while, you're going to start spotting patterns.
Yeah.
And then be able to, like, for example, we're now making an assumption that it doesn't create that. And that's not based on any fact. It's based on previous experience with other things.
Yeah.
So we might be right, we might be wrong. But at the very least, we'll learn something.
So there's one other way you can find this out. You can actually look at the source code of CDK. How does it do it? But because it's open source. But I think it's easier just to do this. As you can see, this is the template generated. It's very complex. So I'm actually gonna just wait for this to finish. I don't think it creates. It creates the entire VPC setup, the NAT gateways, the whatnot, but it will not create the VPC endpoint. I'm fairly certain of this.
Yeah,
And
I also feel that
looking
way.
even looking at CloudFormation here on the resources page, I see no resource for VPC endpoint. I see build projects, roles, security groups, buckets, keys, aliases, policies, repositories, VPC, internet gateway, route table, subnet, route table, subnet, NAT gateway, route table, subnet. I don't think it's going to create any of those things. So I think,
Also, I think while we're waiting for it quickly, I see the comment here by Roger saying he's enjoying the stream. So what I want to do is I want to quickly share our YouTube channel with you as well, because since we're going to be building on multiple episodes and Twitch only keeps the episode for a certain amount of time, we are streaming to YouTube at the same time so that we can have this available for people to rewatch or catch up if we do things in sequence. So I'll quickly paste that channel there. Please subscribe if you want to get notified when the video uploads, because we might be editing them a little bit. And also what you can do is you can subscribe to the specific events and get notifications when we go live on there as well.
Mr. Laqueta, I hope that's how you pronounce it, asked if I can open the template in the designer. I can. I'm not sure what we're going to be seeing here. Does it even? Okay, there we go. There we go. That's the designer. I really don't know what is the. We see internet gateways, subnets, build projects. It's connected to the. It has a build project security group, and I think that's it, right? Security group. This is the link. There's also a connection to the VPC. Yeah, it's connected to the VPC for sure, but it's not actually. I don't think it's doing any sort of VPC gateway. So looking at this thing, I don't think it's present here. So it has the policies, VPC. There's an internet gateway, public IP, public subnets, but yeah, these are just a bunch of subnets that are created. NAT gateways, routes. Yeah, I think nothing here out of that. So looking at this thing, it's completed. Let's actually have a look at the VPC itself. Leave site, yes, leave, please. Not EC2, VPC, sorry. So I hopefully will be able to see the name of this VPC on the left-hand side here if my laptop survives. So it's gonna be this one. So if we look at endpoints for that VPC, I think we should see none. Yeah, endpoint services, there are none. Yep, see, nothing. There is nothing like that created here. So unfortunately, we need to do that manually. So yeah, we've tested it out, and it was very simple to test out because basically we just added this, and if I remove this, go up, remove EC2, and then remove this, save it, and then CDK PM run build. I'm gonna just make this change deploy just to kind of revert back to the original stage, but yeah, we've made sure that this doesn't work as questioned. It was, and this is the benefit of using things such as infrastructure as code, because it was really fast for me to make this change. If you would have to do this manually, yeah, it will take a while to make these kind of quick changes. So basically, I'm now removing everything with just 12 keystrokes. So that's really cool. Excellent. So I guess we can slowly wrap this up. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I really do appreciate it. Monday, we're going to be doing the same thing at the same time. We're going to continue talking about this, I guess. And yeah, there's a bunch of other things we can do. So so let me try to make something fun. Like that. Hello banner being streaming. It's a horrible name, I know, but
Awesome.
yeah, it's fine. So thank you very much for
It's
joining
my
us.
fault, okay?
You're the dad here. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody enjoys their Friday and have a really nice, good long weekend. And yeah, recuperate for Monday. And we will see you Monday at the same time, same place, with more coffee apparently.
Yes, definitely more coffee. I
So
will actually
yeah,
save my third or fourth cup for the session.
please do. This is the this is the
Cool.
point, Cobus. We drink coffee, we talk to people. Thank you, everybody, and see you Monday.